Okay, everybody, we got another episode of the MyPilgrimage podcast going on. We're going to be talking about social media and about how that affects everything we're working on, everything we're doing in our spiritual journeys, because there is a spiritual perspective. Where do you go? That's Micah. That's my youngest. He's on, just finished his day of virtual schooling and thought he'd jump in here and say hi. Seth and I had a good conversation about Facebook and social media and how that's affecting people, because obviously it is affecting things, and we got this crazy election season going on. So enjoy the conversation, and then I'll come back and give you a few thoughts right at the end. So,
all right, we are here to talk about Facebook and social media and spirituality.
And collective energy fields, as it were.
Energy fields.
Collective energy fields.
For you sciencey folks, that means we're talking a little bit about quantum physics today.
Yeah, quantum entanglement, frequencies. For you religious folk, if the religious folk need language around this, you can use concepts like strongholds is a good term.
No, that's really good. Actually, we should definitely it helps, because there are guys in the group that are definitely kind of still in that are in a more religious space. Yeah. Because to them, sometimes that stuff sounds pretty new agey. Mm-hmm. Where they go on new agey, and a lot of the programming that we have in the church, of course, is that new agey is kind of bad and it's deceptive and all this other stuff. So we want to acknowledge that for anybody who's listening, if you guys are listening to this stuff and you're thinking, new age, let's let that go, because it's a blend. It's a blend of words and symbolism and stuff like that. We're actually talking about it's pretty helpful stuff, and I like to frame stuff often with people where I'll go, okay, well, Jesus said it like this. Because Jesus was talking about all this stuff all the time. Yeah. You know what I mean? This is like his whole ministry was talking about this kind of stuff. So, well, let's first, before we get into it, let's lay out the problem. Like, what are we encountering? And we were seeing some stuff in the Facebook group. What are you seeing, man?
Yeah. Well, the problem, and it's funny to even frame it as the problem, because I'm not sure if it is a problem as much as it is a natural evolution. There is it's funny. I remember this. I forgot what book it was in the Bible, but it was talking about the earth groaning, like the earth kind of groaning, like, you see, we used to, when we were kids, if there was an earthquake or something like that, there'd be a sermon that Sunday about how the earth is groaning. And, it's basically everything was a sign that the earth's about to, Jesus is coming back and we're all going to die or something. But I see this natural evolutionary process taking place in kind of the redemption of people. But we are in the phase right now where certain tools, okay, and I'm talking specifically about internet tools like Facebook. I think Facebook's the main culprit, but we're seeing these tools that are showing us the worst of ourselves. Right. You know what I mean? And it's causing people, it's not accelerating suffering. The suffering's always been there. It's just bringing it to the surface, and it's allowing us to see it in a profoundly new way. It's watching it play out. You notice how many Christians, like I was hanging out with a friend of mine the other day who is he has been a hardcore mega church evangelical privileged white guy, prosperity doctrine, the whole 9 yards. That's been his way of being. But this movement that we've seen this year of this kind of all the nastiness and of our way of being pouring out onto social media and this kind of thing he's finally said, I can't do this anymore. This can't be what Christianity is. And he's literally starting to just like pour himself into what was Jesus actually saying, Right. And it's really something, because it's causing us to see our suffering in a brand new way. It's causing us to experience it in a brand new way. But the physics of it are fascinating. And that's what I want to kind of discuss today. I wanted to discuss it in how it's experienced in our bodies that we're unconscious of. Mm-hmm. Because everyone that's listening to this has gotten in an argument with someone on Facebook.
Okay? Every one of us.
Just about, yeah. I mean, there's an exception.
At least there's a mild and there will be those guys in group like, I don't even engage in Facebook. I don't do that. You know what I mean?
Which and most guys know. I mean, because we have a Facebook group for MyPilgrimage, which honestly is an amazing place. Like this small private group is one of the beautiful things about it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But most of us are encountering our relationships during this time, especially in online spaces, in a very contentious way. And what I wanted to talk about was how we are experiencing that and why it's becoming as insane as it is. It's always been nuts. I mean, since Facebook came on the scene and since social media came on the scene, it's always been crazy. But right now it's beyond toxic. And I remember you saying at some point, I've never seen it this toxic before. It's extremely toxic.
And
so
full disclosure, we all, including myself, have gotten caught up and I think tend to kind of go in cycles.
Yeah.
I was more ready for it this time in 2016 during the election. Me being I'm a very opinionated person politically. I got caught up in it big time, man. Like I was spending at one point spending hours trying to do these kind of philosophical, dances with people, trying to, convince them why we should or shouldn't vote for a certain person or whatever.
Right.
This time I remember getting pulled into it for like a week and then going, whoa, no, I'm not going to do it that way. And
you're still engaged in it in a more shallow
absolutely.
level, constant conversations going on and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
But you're not getting
the reason I engage in it is because I have accepted that social media is part of the platform that we live in, and it is an important part of the political platform now, and that's not going to go away. There's no way we're going backwards. We're not going to go back to an environment in which we don't have Facebook friends unless we completely get off Facebook, which is fine. You can do that.
Right.
But I found myself going, look, I'm going to take a long-term approach to this. I'm going to have respectful conversations with people and encourage respectful conversations.
Yeah.
And then watch how it evolves. Because like if you're having in a respectful conversation with somebody, like right now, let's say you're a conservative and you're having a respectful conversation with somebody who's a liberal, and you guys are having these conversations, the political landscape is evolving and changing as we go. If I have a conversation, we start that conversation in February, and then by the following year, we have a different president or a different Senate or a different, things have flipped over. Those conversations are evolving as the political space is evolving. We have to all continue to work and kind of keep those channels open in terms of conversation. The thing that I found that was bad for me was that I was spending a totally unbalanced amount of time on it, right? And I wasn't engaging in my actual sphere of influence right around me, my physical influence. I wasn't engaging in my community here on Maui. I wasn't saying like, wait, if you want to actually be involved with politics, you have to first start by getting involved with politics locally. Like how many of us have gone to a community meeting? How many of us have gone and even met our representatives?
Right.
That was the kind of thing for me. And so I had to go back and reset that and go, I'm going to start by having lunch with my representative, and start going into that. So anyway, that's a side note.
Well, when it comes to this stuff, here's the question. Like of all the conversations you had on Facebook with people about politics, okay? If we could just say, let's just go back 2 years and let's take every conversation you had and erase it.
Yep.
Like it never happened.
Yep.
Would the people you were engaging with be any different than they are now? And I would be willing to bet they would not.
Right. I would say that there's maybe 2 people that I'd say that I've actually influenced.
Right.
Out of hundreds. Yeah.
Right. So even when we talk about, well, we need to keep these channels open, we need to have these conversations, I'm not sure that's true. And the reason is not because conversation isn't good. It's because social media does not allow for it is not designed to create an energetic experience of the, quantum entanglement, right? Let's get into this kind of idea.
Yeah, sure.
Just fundamentally, David Taylor is 99% empty space. Okay. David Taylor is made up of a bunch of weird particles that are vibrating at certain frequencies that are moving in and out of the quantum vacuum that he's an undulating, fixed point in space and time that is not always here kind of thing. Right. So
I'm undulating.
There is a mysterious component to what you are.
I'm gonna put that on a t-shirt.
Undulating.
I am undulating. Just that's it.
My pilgrimage. Go to the merch store.
Seriously, we should get a merch store up where we have these statements that on there.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
MyP logo like on the tag on the back or something.
It's like Deepak Chopra. He's got that spiritual gangster T-shirt.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I gotta give me one of those. We should have some My Pilgrimage gear. I am undulating.
Undulating.
Well, you are this mysterious kind of thing, but one of the things when physicists look at it, they're actually looking at what the frequencies. They're seeing everything in terms of frequencies and fields, and because you are vibrating, and you're vibrating in all kinds of frequencies. The guy that's listening with those knots in his stomach right now, those knots in your stomach it's quantum energy that's vibrating at a very low frequency. when your heart's open, you hold your child in your arms and you feel that love, your heart goes, and you're feeling that super high frequency. But all of us have these undulating frequencies inside of us. And the truth is that they all kind of add up and they sum up to what I call the baseline frequency. Everybody's got a baseline. Mm-hmm. Now, the thing is, what we have to understand is about how reality is created, okay, is that your internal vibration is creating its mirror externally. So your external world becomes a direct mirror of your internal vibration. Mm-hmm. So if you carry a bunch of trauma in your body, that frequency is constantly recreating its low frequency in your world around you. So when you encounter someone else who's vibrating super high, your frequency and their frequency begin this kind of funny little wrestling match to see, are they going to pull you up or are you going to pull them down? Right. That's why if you're around a bunch of negative people, you tend to kind of get a little negative, or you walk away feeling kind of heavy because you've been in their field. And the truth is, you can put a super high vibrating person, stick them behind a counter at Starbucks with 8 people that are, vibrating super low. By the time they leave, they're going to be feeling like shit. Right. And that's the reality. So we're talking, but we actually, if I could pop glasses on you and we could see the fields, you could see the quantum fields a little bit like Nikhil apparently is starting to do.
Yeah.
If you're experiencing these fields, if you could see them with your eyes, you would see frequencies affecting each other. And here's the thing, okay? The more people who get involved in someone else of the same frequency, okay? So you got 50 people, they're all vibrating at that same frequency. Their trauma has set a low baseline. They connect to each other on a quantum level. Mm-hmm. They become entangled with each other in the same field, and they form what's called a collective field. Now, like when we were raised, we were talking about demonic strongholds and these kind of concepts. Those were collective fields, all right? A collective field, because I have a field and I have an ego to manage the low vibrations in my field and help me survive. Well, if I jump into I'm going to this church and everybody's got the same frequency and we're all, notice how churches tend to be all kind of the same kind of people, right? You go into this space, now our egos combine and can create a collective ego as well. And that's where you can get a certain religious expression, a certain belief system, a certain kind of thing. And that field it helps us survive those frequencies we carry. So this is what tribe is. Tribalism is a bunch of people getting together to help each other survive. And that happens on a frequency level. That's why Facebook is a place of fields and strongholds, period. It is a collective field. That's why when you get in a conversation with someone on Facebook, you're not getting in a conversation with one person. You're getting in a conversation with a collective.
Right.
And that's all it is.
Okay, so I want to interject just one thing here. So this is what's interesting, because I don't agree with your notion that social media is this thing. I would say that Facebook is definitely that thing, because there's lots of different types of social media and they all have kind of different purposes.
Some are different than others. Yeah, for sure.
And there are different conversations, and it has to do with the way the software is designed. Facebook is particularly toxic because of the design of the way that it is. And it's exactly that. Like if I try and have a conversation, and this is where my approach to Facebook is a little bit different, a lot different now than it used to be. Whenever I'm getting into conversations with people that I feel like they could be a meaningful conversation, I pull out off the Facebook feed and I go into private messaging, right? I'll message them privately and go, hey, let's have this conversation private. Or better yet, let's get on FaceTime. Let's get on Zoom and let's talk. And let's have a whiskey and just kind of talk about things, because I have found that it's that notion that if I say a comment, like any one of my 1,000-some Facebook friends can jump in and they can make a comment. They can throw all kinds of fire, gasoline on the fire, or they can make it worse. And I can't tell you how many times I've been having a conversation with somebody and it's been respectful, and we're sharing ideas, even though we may be opposed to each other, ideologically. We're having a kind of a respectful conversation. And then some person will jump in and go, Trump 2020, fuck you, or something like that. And you'll go, and you'll just be like, oh man, like, look, we're trying to do this thing properly. And that's where I was like, oh, it's the design. It's the user experience.
That's my point. That's my point is you're never having a conversation with a person. You're having a conversation with a field, with a collective.
Right. Right. So like you would say, Facebook is a collective field user experience.
Yeah. So you have what you have in Facebook when it comes to any actual dialogue, relationship, or construction, other than, I will say, in these small private groups that are curated. Okay. Yeah. Which the MyPilgrimage Facebook group is a curated space, meaning when things come through, we can approve or disapprove of the content so that we can stay in a certain space, collectively. Right. Other than that, what you're dealing with is the unstoppable force meets the immovable object.
Right.
You're dealing with the volcanic flows of Hawaii meeting the ocean. You know what I mean? So you're not dealing with, and that is on a physics level. Every time that you have a conversation with whatever that guy is that keeps trolling you, right? You're having a conversation. He's got millions of people standing behind us, and that's why it can't go anywhere. You're pushing. You're like standing against the Empire State Building, going, just pushing. We're like, dude, what are you doing? And that's why it's so fruitless, and it's literally meaningless. I actually finally Googled yesterday, is there a way to get rid of your Facebook account and still be a part of a small group? Because I was like, I really love the MyPilgrimage group. I really adore that space. Yeah. But I don't want to do this anymore. You know what I mean? And in the past, I've been like,
I can one up you on that. I run, for our boating business here and for several other things and for the podcast and everything like that. I have to, because in order to have a business Facebook page, you have to have a personal Facebook page. And so I have, I have to engage every day for my job. I have to engage in Facebook and find ways to kind of be in that space. And what I've found is that the two tend to bleed over onto each other a little bit. Right. And you become very consciously aware of that and go, oh man, there's no way to get out of this thing.
There is no way to get out of it. And the thing is, I always traditionally had the page because as an author, when you're writing stuff that goes out in the world, Facebook is useful for somebody finding you. Like I can't tell you how many people have found me from somewhere in the world, all over the world. Yeah. Hey, I read your book. Just wanted to connect. Thank you for that. Right. And you create some cool connections. And I've had all kinds of interesting things happen in that space, but it's toxic beyond belief because it is a place where just is collectives smashing into each other. And I think, what it feels to me like is it's very much, it is a drug. I mean, it's a very, very powerful drug delivery system because those collectives are a place of, they're a place of acceptance. They're a place of belonging, even on a deeply unconscious level. Yeah. And the more that these energies around election times, especially right now, 2020 is just a unique year, man. It's a unique year of massive divisiveness and all the fear that has come up and because of COVID and all the anxiety and all the stuff that's happening is leaving people in spaces where they are wanting to kind of run home to mama, like retreat to the collective. Just let me back in. I've never given a shit about news, politics, any of that stuff until this year. Like, I mean, literally all of a sudden if I can just watch 5 minutes of MSNBC, I feel like somebody, I'm like, okay, I'm hugging myself now. You know what I mean?
Schadenfreude. There's a term for this.
Oh yeah. You told me there's the German term, right?
I might be saying it wrong. And I hope if I am, and anybody who's listening, like kind of gets that, like, I think it's called the Schadenfreude. It's a German term for enjoying, essentially enjoying the collective energy of your righteousness, of your own rightness, and enjoying the suffering of your enemy.
Yes.
Like that idea, and that we are, that's what cable news has become. For sure. Like MSNBC, if you're kind of liberal, it's MSNBC, CNN. If you're conservative, it's Fox News and even worse, the OAN thing. Yeah. There's these kind of spectrums, right? And then you try, those of us who are trying to we want to read the news, but we're trying to find something in the middle and try and find what's the most balanced and blah, blah, blah. And everybody's like, you even have like rating systems now online about like who's the most quote unquote actually fair. But then you got the president saying it's all fake, and you got the other people saying it's not fake. Yeah.
And then you have all these other governments coming in saying, hey, those Americans are really fucked up. Let's go ahead and toss some more weird stuff at them. Fake news spreads 4 times as fast as real news. And the thing is, because we are seeking, I mean, the old term is confirmation bias, right? Whatever you believe, you're seeking confirmation of that belief. Right. That's why the idea, when you have liberals screaming about facts, we have to start with facts. Right. That's not a thing, especially on Facebook. Your reality is going to be exactly what you believe it to be. And we should have understood that because it's been like that for thousands of years, long before Facebook. Right. We believed what we needed to believe. And I mean, the Pax Romana, the peace of Rome.
Right. Oh man,
living under the peace of Rome, were just feeling so peaceful because they had Rome there to dominate them. You know what I mean?
I was in Rome last year, and I remember we were in the Forum, in the ruins of the Forum, close to the Colosseum, and there's victory arches, right? So they would build these huge victory arches to celebrate these victories, and the arch of Trajan's, is it Trajan's Arch? I think it was. It's close to the Colosseum. It's the closest arch to the Colosseum, and you go under, and it was about the victory over the Jews. And so the entire arch is inscribed in relief all over it, illustrating the victory of the Romans, right? Because what they would do is that when the soldiers came home and the army came to Rome, they're not allowed to bring any of their weaponry or their armor or anything into the city through the city gates. They would leave all of that out of the city gates, and they would march in togas and with a victory wreath. But as citizens, right, unarmed citizens, and they would come in, and the general or Caesar or whoever it was would ride in the chariot, and there would be a man standing behind holding the victory wreath over his head, and there was this whole show that was put on, you know, that we are these peaceful warriors and we are out bringing peace to the world, and so that everyone in Rome could hold up the narrative, this belief, this narrative that we are right, and this is and the gods are behind us, and this is our purpose in the world, is to bring peace to the whole world through war. But when they never got to see the weapons, they never saw that, what, you know what I mean, any of the realities of it. There was no TV or anything like that, so all the citizens of Rome saw were these peaceful warriors that were coming in with no weaponry, no nothing. That's all they ever saw. And then the alternative was, the only time they ever actually saw any of actual history or news is if someone was standing and declaring a proclamation by Caesar, or if they were in the Colosseum watching the battles replayed inside the Colosseum, right? With gladiators and with slaves to be slaughtered. And they would do it that way they would present that romantic narrative of the Romans as conquerors, and incredible. And it does seem like social media is kind of a generator of that, really kind of a place to kind of create
exactly
that.
What it is. It's as old as time itself. It's as old as time itself, man. It is, you know, it's David and Goliath. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That was guerrilla theater. It's two guys standing up there representing the whole story and narrative about the nature of their God. I defy you. And you know, the God of Israel is this, and he's over here talking about their gods, and everybody's got their gods. It's still the same friggin' thing. And you know, and the hard part is you can say, well, what's the way forward? Well, the way forward is, Jesus pointed it out pretty clearly. You talked about death. Death is the way forward, where we actually begin to die to the stories. We begin to die to the narratives. We begin to die to these things. And I think, okay, and this is my opinion, it's just my opinion, but I think that how that looks on Facebook is actually leaving Facebook. It's actually leaving, it's disengaging from the platform completely, because you're surrendering your need to be a part of a collective. You're surrendering your need to tell that person they're wrong. You're surrendering your need to engage in these conversations and trusting that people suffering, no one comes to consciousness without suffering. It's their suffering. You know, that guy that you're debating with, or that guy that when the other day you finally were like, all right, we're not going to be friends anymore.
Lewis. Lewis.
That guy,
he was an old, you know, he's from the church we grew up in, you know?
Yeah, I remember, man. Like that guy, only his suffering is going to help him. And when you disengage from his energy, he has to be in it more. He's just looking to make you a part of the collective, to assimilate you. Remember, you and me were big Star Trek: The Next Generation fans. Back in high school.
Borg.
The Borg. You will be assimilated. Resistance is futile. Right? That's the idea, is that they're just looking to assimilate you, and the best thing you can do is completely disengage, and that's what death is.
But here's the thing: is that every collective is doing that. Right. On all sides, every collective is doing that. So the question is this, right? So you had mentioned it earlier. Oh, go ahead. You want to finish your thought?
I won't say every collective in just this sense. Okay. Love is a collective.
It is
a collective, but it's a collective of such a high vibration that it is completely fluid in its movement between, like, love. You know, I love the way that song "One" by U2, when they talk about love being the higher law, is this thing that it's like a soft blanket you lay over the world, and everything, and now everyone is okay and everyone is free. So the higher the vibration goes, the more love becomes part of the collective. And when love is the collective, okay, this is very Bob Marley, right? But when love is the collective field, then things like consciousness expands, and things like certainty aren't a thing anymore. Things like war is not a thing anymore. Struggle is not a thing anymore. We actually become so free that our eyes are open to see each other's suffering and to love each other from that space. And the most loving thing we can do at this point is to actually surrender all those things. That's why I don't, you know, and it's funny because you guys know Rob Bell's a role model for me. Like, he's been a role model for me and a mentor. And Rob has no presence on Facebook whatsoever. None. He has there's a kind of fan page, I guess you can call it, you know, where he's a public figure, where he just announces wherever he's going to speak. But you'll never hear him jump into a conversation on Facebook ever. No. Because he's out there going, I've got this much sacred energy. Where am I going to put it? And for now, I want to say on this too, these fields that I'm talking about, these collective fields, are felt. They are felt by every human being on the planet. Some people are more sensitive than others. Some people are more trained to feel than others. But the truth is, like, most of us are affected heavily on these things. That's why people instinctively know, hey, I need to fast on Facebook. I think I'm going to take a week off of Facebook. Because I've been swimming in this shit and I can feel it at some level.
Right.
And that's the thing.
We had a member in the Facebook, Graham, the other day, was talking. He was describing a lot of struggle that he's kind of going through in terms of family and terms of processing and moving through this healing space. It was kind of moving through a valley kind of space.
Right.
And he didn't come out and totally say it, but he did say, I found that since the start of COVID, I've been really drawn to the news app on my phone and to Facebook. Neither is helpful or fruitful. The world is a mess. And
I'm with you, Graham.
Right. No, and it was interesting watching the responses and everybody hopping on and kind of giving their advice. Of course, Matt Wood was on there. First step, stay away from Facebook News and CNN. and like,
oh yeah,
because CNN's fake news. And
right.
And I was like, oh, that's not really helpful.
Come on, Matt.
Come on, Matt.
I love you, buddy. If we didn't have Matt.
We need to get Matt in here. Like, Matt, let's jump in here, man.
Get Matt on
Matt.
On
Matt is. I appreciate the counter narrative of Matthew Wood. I think it's a helpful.
I appreciate the fact that Matt has stuck around because him and I have had many private conversations. I was like, listen, man, we're not going to do this to each other here.
Right.
And he's like, no, that's cool. It's cool. And he's like, literally, like, just kind of. He's actually a lot more humble than I initially expected.
Yeah. No, it's good. And that's a really cool, that's the wonderful thing. Like you were talking about these curated groups where we can in here and we can all we can set some rules and go, hey, look, this is a no judgment zone.
Yeah.
In this space, we start with the idea that we're all wounded. We're all working towards healing. We're all trying to work in that space. And that's the number one goal. It's not to get a certain person elected, and it's not to believe a certain thing.
Yeah.
You got to come in here and
it has to be love.
Set that aside. Yeah. It's got to be love.
And I still get that. We still get that, for those of you guys that are listening that that are part of the Facebook group, if you're not, come be a part of it. But if you are, like, we still get those things where someone will submit some sermon that their pastor preached on Sunday about this seventh seal being opened or something. And you're just like, dude, this isn't what we do here, man.
Right.
It's not what we do. You want to talk about, do a video and talk about your feelings about that kind of thing. Then hit me. But it's not when you say it's a no judgment zone, then certainty is the opposite of that. Like the idea that we're addicted to this. But that's the thing is these spaces are very, very, very toxic. And I'm anxious to see the evolution of it because the truth is it's not really sustainable.
Right.
Facebook, I mean, mostly because on a business level, they're going to, when people start getting themselves killed because of stuff that was said on Facebook,
right.
Facebook will have to finally maybe fully face that. They're already having to recognize the fact that their platform is allowing for severe damage that's leading to severe suffering for people.
Right. And that's only happening in the West. I mean, Facebook right now is already being used as a tool for genocide in some other developing world countries where it's the main communication tool. And that's kind of the hard part about it is that Facebook being global, the internet being global, there's not there's accountability here, and that's good.
Yeah.
I right now I'm kind of holding my breath and just saying, can we just hopefully we can get through. There's a narrative playing in my head that says we just get through the election season and things will calm down. I don't think that's actually going to happen. I think we're going to get through the election season and it's going to continue to go bananas. So I think it's interesting. You're like, hey, look, the only solution is actually get off Facebook. And it's a good thing that we're not trying to make money off this, because telling everybody to get off Facebook and stuff like that and get off, you're always like, just you guys move out to the woods somewhere and be cool. That doesn't make us any money, man.
I like being in, I like our Facebook group there. I really do. And it's got something beautiful to it, but it's one of those things where I think that, okay, so let's tell you a story. So this last week, for the first time in a very, very long time, I commented on I've been unfriending and blocking people like crazy. And without anything, I've just finally realized that, like, if I go in, every time I go in this, I've got some just nasty thing.
Yeah.
And then because I knew that person in high school, for some reason, I have to be their Facebook friend. And I was just like, okay, that's it. So I've started coming to the point where I'm just like, they're dropping like flies. I'm just going, I'm going to empty out my until all I see is stuff that's either loving or I can agree with it, and I'm totally aware that I'm just saying, just give me what I already believe. That's fine. I don't need fucking Facebook, and I don't care about that place.
Right.
But I had this one guy that I'd been friends with at the last church I went to, and he's a pretty histrionic guy, mm-hmm. and he's gone recently from being a worship leader to being a atheist. He flipped, right?
Right.
He's still, I mean, he's just on the same, he's like his ego just flipped to the other side of the coin. Let's try the atheist side now, but it's still is 100% just an ego run thing. And so now he's all over his feed with all his thousands of followers that are Christians, and he's just going, tell me what evidence there is for God's existence. And I've seen him do this over and over and over again. And I finally was like, I just threw a little comment there and I said, hey man, I said, it's kind of the question of whether God exists or not. It's kind of a silly question. I go, there's better questions to ask. And then I relatively eloquent kind of rant about better questions about the nature of love and the nature of people and how everything's moving forward.
Just I'll edit this out, but who are we talking about?
A guy named Brennan Strawn. He's a musician. Yeah. And man, holy crap. I mean, there's 1,000 comments on the stream and he just goes at me. And it was a tidal wave of energy. And for those of you guys that have worked with me, you guys know I'm hyper sensitive energetically, and I'm pretty good at keeping myself in my own field. Yeah. But man, I mean, the first sentence, it was like somebody had just like,
right.
And I was like, oh my God. I mean, and I literally, if you'd seen me, I was like, my crown was like going crazy, like all this energy. And I'm like, and my ego just went, just spun up like, whoa, hey, we're here. Cause my ego doesn't have much to do, to be honest with you. Right. But it was real. And here's all the things we're going to say to him. But luckily I was aware of it. I watched my ego spin up and I just went, whoa, nope. And I just commented, I said, you know what? I said, I'm a little shocked that was your takeaway from everything I said, but never mind. You're totally right. I'm out. I'll see you. And I just said, never mind. And I dropped him as a friend and blocked him immediately. Right. Because I'm like, I'm not going to, there's no point. What's the point? And I remember going, I was literally like, stupid. Like, what was I thinking? Why would I do that? Why would I engage in a conversation like this? Right. And so then he goes at me on Instagram, starts DMing me. And I mean, it was nasty. And I went, dude, blessings on that whole thing. And then and he said, you can fuck off. And you can just going off. I mean, like raging against me for having suggested that there's a better question to ask. Right. And I blocked him too. And it took me easily 24 hours to clear his energy out of my body. Right. I mean, I was literally, my ego was just going like this and I'm like hurting. I had to go into deep meditation and clear that because he had hit me, not with just darts, but with a full-blown bazooka of toxic energy. Right. And I think most people are swimming in that type of energy most of the time without even knowing it.
So let's talk about that. Okay. So we were talking about quantum fields. We're talking about that. There's the way you describe it, there's this very kind of practical understanding of it, right? Where you're going, okay, there's there's a thing here where and I had this question came up with someone, I can't remember who, someone else brought this up, where this idea of like, his energy is hitting you. Yeah. But then we talk in our videos, we talk about this idea of triggers, right? Is one way to think about this. His energy is triggering something in you, or do you actually see that his energy is like literally pouncing out of his body and attacking you?
Yes, that was that case. Because that does happen. Yeah.
And you're talking about entity like kind of stuff.
Yeah, talking about entity. Now entities, of course, are just part of the collective field. There's something that helps strengthen it. Sure. Right. We're talking about an energetic field. Think of it like this. You're a Lord of the Rings guy. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with Lord of the Rings. Remember the name
Not like me. I could beat anybody. You bring on
seriously,
any of you guys want to challenge me? You want to throw down on Lord of the Rings quizology?
Bring you and Colbert head to head. I'd like to see. So remember the swamps that Gollum leads Sam and Frodo through to get. Yeah. What are they called? What are they called?
The dead marshes. Come on,
dead marshes.
That's an easy one.
The dead marshes. So remember how he knows the path through the marshes, and remember when there's these swamps and there's these ghosts in there and stuff like that. And Frodo at one point looks in and he's like, "Don't go into the light. Don't go near the light.
Don't follow the lights."
Yeah. And he just like kind of face first right into it. Yeah. That's how Facebook is.
Right.
That's how Facebook is, and that's how people's energy is. Now, sometimes if I have a bunch of trauma inside of me, that is vibrating at the same frequency that guy is, and his claw comes out of the swamp and latches on, and if it hits that frequency, it will trigger energy inside of me that is useful because it'll show it to me, and I can heal.
Right?
Does that make sense?
Yep.
That can help me heal. But if let's say we remove that trauma from my body and it's not there anymore, it doesn't stop his claw from coming out. It's expanding. His field is expanding to try to literally rope in as many people and as much energy as it can to strengthen his field, his ego, his collective trauma.
Right.
And so now with me, I'm aware enough because I'm not frequency resonating with that energy. I'm aware enough that I can feel it like a bubble that's just literally expanding. It was like a toxic energy hitting me in the face. And I can light myself up and push it back.
Right.
And then he gets to sit in his field more. And the fact that I just blocked him, I guarantee you somewhere right now, this has been days, and I guarantee you somewhere right now, he's still thinking about it because he's stuck in his own energy, and no one's what it is, it's a leech concept, an energetic, some people call it vampire, the energetic vampire concept, where he needs to suck off of other people. And that's a way his particular trauma functions.
Right.
But I'm like, not me, just throw it up.
Out. Right.
Because my ego is subdued enough that I don't have to be right. And that's a huge part of it. Right. I don't have to be right. I don't have to engage in an argument. I can literally go, dude, totally. You're completely right.
Yeah.
Because he is in his field, in his world, he is. And I'm fine with that because my ego does not need to be right, does not need that affirmation, just any of that. And that is ultimately, we can see it on a physics level. You can see it on a frequency level.
Right.
That's what we're all experiencing below the neck.
Right.
But your brain kicks in to manage all that shit. Your ego just goes, here's the way to do it. Here's what we should. I mean, for 24 hours, my brain was like, here's what you should have said. This way.
Yeah.
This really, I mean, remember we used to, you and I both played high level sports, and you get in a tussle in a game, and afterwards everybody in the locker room is like, oh, you should have done this. Oh, that guy. And everybody's in their collective field and their collective ego, just going crazy like that.
Right.
And what we need to do is we all just need to completely disengage. And it's funny because I still play decently high level men's soccer. And, I was playing over 30s up until a year ago, and I just couldn't handle the ego anymore.
Right.
Because people are still doing that. And so everybody's on the field fighting, and I'm the guy over just kind of with my arms crossed. So I hope we get to finish the game.
Yeah, I'm playing basketball in over 40 league, and dudes are arguing. I'm standing in the corner.
Yeah. Well, it's a collective field. Well, and you'll love this. My last over 30s game, I've been with this team for 15 years. No joke. Yeah. And we'd had some guys come and go, and it gotten a little bit toxic. There were some guys in there. At one point, we had this game where I'm playing left wing, and we gave up like 3 goals in like a couple minutes. And our right back was making a big mistake in his positioning. And I finally said,
I'm going to pause you. My cat's telling me to open the door. George is pissed off at me. Hold on.
Okay.
I got you, buddy. I got you. Okay. Well, thanks for the heads up, man. I appreciate it. There you go. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. There you go. George, he's such a good communicator, George. He's wonderful at that. He headbutted me in the shin and started meowing. I don't know if you heard him, but okay, go back. You got your story to tell. I want to hear this. Yep.
So I've been with this team for 15 years.
Yeah.
And we're getting these goals scored on us. I just said to the right back, I go, hey, I hadn't touched the ball in like 10 minutes,
right?
Because they just couldn't get it to me. And I just said, hey man, I said, dude, just tuck in a little bit. That guy doesn't get in behind you every time. That's all I said. The center back, this guy who's got this monstrous ego, he just yells, Zach, shut the F up and keep the ball.
Wow.
I hadn't touched the ball in 10 minutes. And I literally went, now, instead of my ego spinning up because of the work I've done for the last 10 years, instead of my ego spinning up and going, fuck that guy, I am right about this. This is not cool. That's a total injustice. I just went, huh. And I literally peeled my jersey off right there on the field. I lifted it in the air and I just dropped it. And I said, peace, I'm out. And I just walked off the field. And a friend of mine in the midfield, he's like, dude, he goes, dude, don't quit. I go, bro, I could drove 45 minutes to get yelled at by a child. I go, if I want to get yelled at by kids, I can go home and get that, man. And he's just like, oh man. Cause I was, I honestly was one of the better players on the team. So he's just like, dude, but we need you, man. I go, yeah, but I don't need this. And I literally texted a friend of mine who had an over 40 team. I said, are you guys kind to each other? And he said, that's our only rule. I'm like, perfect. I'm playing for you guys now. And he's like, yes.
Yeah.
Like, great.
Yeah. It's funny you're having this. I've had almost the exact same thing in my adult sports thing where I just kind of slowly was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do, and got to a point where basketball where the guys were, I'm able to go, yeah, fellas, look, I'm out here to, I don't, number one, don't want to get hurt.
Right.
I literally just try to get some exercise, meet some nice guys and have a beer afterwards and just have it and enjoy that. That's the whole kind of point, but yeah. Interesting. Okay. So let's do
the
this.
idea is this, is that the same thing that would hook you into on that field, and the same thing that says, I got to be right. And the same thing that says, I got to show my mom that what I'm doing is not of the devil because I'm healing and I'm changing.
Right.
That same thing. A lot of people that are changing and healing and growing, like people engaged with MyPilgrimage, at the holidays, the Christian family is coming in and they're going off about how they're praying for you to come back to God or something like that. I mean, my mother believes, my mother believes I'm demon possessed.
So does mine. That's crazy.
And we're just, I mean, no matter what we've done to help the world heal and bring the truth of Christ and God's light to the world, she believes that we're demon possessed, that we're going to go to hell someday, and that God promised her we were going to come back. So at some point we're going to become evangelical Christians again.
Right.
And that, and the thing is, that's okay.
It's okay. Yeah.
Now, does it make for intimate relationship? No, I can't do intimate relationship with that person. I have to be willing to let that go, and that's okay. Yeah. But you know, it's one of those things where it's when we heal and that ego, we're finally able to subdue the ego. We don't have to engage in that stuff anymore.
Right. So, okay. So there, and that also came up, I think, I can't remember who, in the group, in terms of like, they're doing some healing and they're finding other people don't want to come along that healing path. And that's frustrating for them. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so what I want to do is I want to spend the last 10, 15 minutes discussing what can we do? And we already said that you can get off Facebook. But that might not be the most practical thing for some people like myself who have to stay on because of my job. And a lot of us have a lot of valuable connections on Facebook and things that we're doing in terms of the way that we're interacting.
Yeah.
But what can we do as I mean, especially with the MyPilgrimage group, this group of guys, you know, no matter how many, because I've noticed that like a lot of them, there's a lot of
too, man.
Yeah, and the girls too. Oh, sorry, man. It's weird, right? You got hundreds.
We got like 4 girls on the.
I know.
4 beautiful, amazing women.
We should do an episode. See if we can get all the girls and do an actual podcast episode. We go,
what's it like?
This crazy world? Yeah, like you help us understand. You know, your species. You know, you guys are amazing. You know. Anyway, now what I want to do is I've noticed that even in our political group or in our I've noticed that even in the MyPilgrimage group, there's so many different beliefs and spectrums of political beliefs. But for some reason in the political group, for some reason in the MyPilgrimage group, we've been able to just stay off those topics and just encourage each other, and help each other, because we all seem to have that kind of healing thing, that we're trying to do.
And I think it's because when you've suffered enough. When you've suffered enough, and a lot of guys come here with a lot of suffering, they finally start to realize what's truly important and what truly is real, and that love is the only thing that's actually really real. Right. And that's the thing, man. You once you've suffered enough,
right?
You know what I mean? And that's the problem, is that you see a lot of people on Facebook kind of staving off their suffering with their collective certainty and their collective rightness. And we just have to disengage from that stuff. I mean, I found myself compulsively watching MSNBC or something like that. And I finally was like, I just noticed, I'm like, whoa, I am like compulsively going there. I just got to stop. And there's no way around in basic discipline, unless if there's a trigger there and it's becoming a legitimate addiction, then there's healing to be done.
Right.
You know, there's real healing to be done. We can see what's triggering you. If Trump is triggering you, or Biden is triggering you, or whoever is triggering you, feel the trigger.
Right.
And then heal it. Right. And then you can just let it go. And yeah, we're Americans. Voting is a good thing. Go do that. But don't give it any more of your energy. I'll give you a great example to kind of, maybe this is a good way to end it. I don't know. But my kids, okay, my goal with COVID and with all the stuff that's going on in the world, it was that my children, I figured I can use them as kind of a measuring tool of how I'm doing with all this. Mm-hmm. If my children don't feel stressed, don't feel anxiety, don't feel freaked out, don't feel none of that about any of this stuff, then I'm doing something right. And it's not naivete. It's just about they look to us for their experience. Right. So my kids, when it comes to like wearing masks, for instance, we live in Seattle. Everyone wears a mask here. This is the way it is here culturally. And my kids wear a mask, don't complain, don't whine. It's just part of it.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, can we get a Captain America mask? Yeah, I can get you a Captain America mask. Fine. Right. It's not a problem. We headed to Idaho over Labor Day weekend, Sandpoint, Idaho, to visit some friends. And that's Trump country, right? I don't live in Trump country. My family's a family of color. We live in a neighborhood that is primarily people of color. It's not Trump country. We head out there where I guess you have to put 40 American flags on your lawn or something. It's a weird kind of thing. It's a weird thing. Like, my wife gets anxiety from seeing an American flag now. That's an odd thing. So we're out there in Idaho, and my daughter asked on the way out there, she says, "Hey, Daddy, do we wear masks out here?" And I could be like, "Well, yes, we do, because COVID-19 is real," and blah, 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 blah. And I didn't do any of that. I just went, because I'm just trying to do the Bruce Lee thing, just be like water,
Yeah.
And I just said, "Sweetheart," I go, "we're going to visit my friend the Halls." And I said, if the Halls wear masks, we wear masks. And if they don't, we don't. And it's okay. We're going to go out here, and we're just going to, and it doesn't look like people want to wear masks out here. So, and we're not going to go to war with anybody. And we're not going to try to say, you're right, you're right, you're right, you're right. We just went out there, and my friend's wife goes, I hope you didn't bring the mask. You bring your mask. She said that at one point to my wife. And I was like, no, we brought them. I go, but you just tell us if we need them or not. And she's like, oh, you won't need them. I'm like, great. And that's it. That's it. That's as close as I was going to come to engaging in that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, and at one point, she kept wanting to talk about the politics. And I just said, listen, I said, for me, it begins and ends with God. God is the force moving everything forward. Love is the one thing that trumps everything. I can wear a mask because that woman over there feels stress if I don't. I can take it off because that person over there feels anxiety if I have it on. I go, I'm fine with that because I don't need to be right. And my ego doesn't need anything. Now, do I have beliefs about how viruses work? Yeah. I just, hey, who's the 5 experts in the country that know something about this? What are you saying? Okay. That probably most likely is the right answer. But I hold my beliefs so loosely because my ego doesn't need to dominate me and be right.
Sure.
Let that shit go because I don't want to be a part of that collective. I've done that, man, and it's nasty.
Yeah.
I want to be, if there's a collective I'm ever going to be a part of again, I want it to be one of love.
Right.
Period.
Yeah. So what we're saying to everyone is that's where it starts, with love. If you feel the need to defend yourself or to defend something, that's ego. That's your ego. That has to be right.
Yeah.
And that goes with anything. Now, we're not.
When those you guys that need it to be biblical, that's as biblical as it gets.
Right.
Straight up as biblical as it gets. Like a lamb before a slaughter.
That's Jesus.
I mean, he's he who had no sin, right? He who had no sin was silent, right? Pilate says to him, why are you silent yet? Don't you know I have the power to kill you or to set you free?
Yeah.
And he says, no one takes my life from me.
Yeah,
he's like,
freely. Yeah, you don't have any power that wasn't given to you.
You got nothing over me. Yeah. I gave this to you. And that's what we're doing. We're giving our lives away by saying, I don't need to be right.
Right.
It's okay.
Right.
I don't need to be right.
Right. And I want to pile on top of that a little bit that we also don't need anyone to be healed. There's some of the guys are working through that right now where it's like, I want my wife to be healed. I want my friends. That's also ego. Yeah. That's trying to co-opt your healing experience, trying to hijack that and go, hey, can I jump on? I'm all about healing. Let's heal. Let the healing begin. It's like, remember that? Good Will Hunting? Yeah. I'm pumped. Let the healing begin. Yeah. That's ego jumping in on that experience. And we don't need that. That spirit gets to do that. And God gets to move that along. We get to just radiate our own healing experience, and those who are attracted to it will come to it and get to have that things. That's why in my pilgrimage, we're not trying to make money off this thing. We're just setting up a space, and it's drawing people to it, and it's bringing people that need to be here. And we don't. It's not.
Hey, in all honesty, though, transparency, I think we had $127 in royalties last quarter.
We did.
$127. Cha-ching.
I'm definitely buying a bottle of whiskey. No, I'm not. Actually, what we did was buy a new microphone because one of the microphones broke.
Nice.
And, there's guys on Patreon that are contributing to the podcast. And by the way, if you'd like to do that, go to mypilgrimage.com. The Patreon link's up on the right side. We don't have any incentives for it. You just drop in $5 a month or something like that. It's always helpful because it bought us a microphone, so we can keep doing this because the port busted on the microphone. So, and we're going to keep working on it. We're going to keep making these things as we go along because it's just fun and people seem to find it helpful. And it's good. Well,
and we'll let it just we can let it ride alongside the Facebook group and the questions that we see coming up in there. And I'm sure around the election and on the other side of the election, there's going to be more questions. And, the vaccine thing is a fascinating thing. It's another thing where everybody's egos are so fired up. And ultimately our goal is that everyone would actually come to a peace that passes understanding. Yeah. A peace that resides so completely within the body that we trust and we know. Guys, I've seen it. I have seen it. God is the thing moving everything forward. It's an unbelievable force of love that is not subject to our egos, is not subject to any of this garbage. It is, and no matter what we see in front of us, we can trust that. We can absolutely trust that. That love is the thing that's driving everything. Mm-hmm. So that's what I want to be a part of. So
So there it is. Good conversation. Leave your comments on the Facebook group. It's helpful stuff. And if you have questions, disagreements, agreements, bring it on. We love to hear this kind of stuff. And also, if you're looking to do topics If you have topics that you'd like us to discuss, you'd like to kind of bring up on the Facebook group, get a deeper dive into some of that stuff, let us know, and we'll throw it in here. So enjoy, you guys.